Hi, everybody. What I want to do now is show an example of how you can use Google Sheets to merge data. Now, for what it's worth, it's probably not the best environment to be merging data, but if you're just scraping some data off the internet and you want to quickly match two different data sets together so you can make a chart or something and you're fairly certain that the data are relatively clean and relatively coordinated with each other, and I'll describe what that means in a second, then you can use Google to do quick merges, and sometimes it's easier than anything else, even though it's probably generally better to do this kind of thing in R or some other robust or complete environment for analyzing data. So imagine the problem here is we've got two different data sources. In this case, data on country measures or national measures. One of a gross national income, which is a measure of some sort of averaged measure of income or prosperity, and the other one is a measure of education. So this is per capita spending, or spending per as a percentage of the GDP. I'm not sure if this label's right, actually, but at any rate, it's a measure of education spending, where the smaller the number, the less spending per capita. And I want to put these all into, I want to merge these together so I can make a plot of these things. And the problem is that the data, while they have common key values in the sense that Belgium is in this data set and Belgium might be in this data set too, and it's spelled the right way, so you can merge them fairly accurately. The problem is the data sets are not identical. There's a lot of records in this data set, for example, that are not in this one, so you can't just copy and paste the data, because if you do that, it won't sync up. It'll be out of alignment. So you have to merge it some other way, and you could just go through and copy and paste. You could copy this value and paste it to the next column and do that clerically or just by hand, but that would take a long time, so it's kind of a pain. You don't really want to do it that way. Now, if these data sets, we've got a key in values that are identical, so all these values here, they may or may not be common to the two data sets, but the spelling is the same, then you can do you can use this little lookup function available in Google Sheets to actually merge these two data sets fairly quickly without a lot of effort. If this is the case. The other thing that has to be true, not only do these names have to match up in the two data sets, but also there can't be duplication. If there's duplication, it can be a little bit irregular. If let's say there was two values of Chad in this table, then the lookup function will pick one of them, probably the first one that it sees, and it will ignore the other, and that might be a problem for you sometimes. So you do have to pay a little bit of attention to this. In this case, you don't have to worry about it because the names of countries, I don't think there's any duplicates. There's no two countries on Earth with the exact same name. So it shouldn't be a problem here, but sometimes it can be, so you have to be a bit wary of that. Now to match them, we're just going to use one function. It's called a lookup function, the vlookup function, and it's like this. And I'll explain it as we go here. Now there's 4 arguments in this function. The first argument is to identify the search key. So in one of the data sets, we'll call this kind of the origin data set, we'll actually use the name of the countries, the first country that we're looking at, as the search key. So we're going to be looking for, in the other data set, for countries with the same name. Now the other data set is contained in a separate sheet here. It doesn't have to be that way, but in this case it is. So we're going to locate that sheet. And then we're going to actually select or identify all the values in that sheet, both the values we're interested in here. We want to grab these ones, and the key values here. So we're selecting both in our range, so A to B. So it's selecting all the columns in that sheet. The third argument is the column that we actually want to retrieve data from. So the second column that we've selected, this one, is where we actually want these data. So I've had to specify that with a to argument. And the last argument is true or false, depending on whether or not the data are sorted. If they're not sorted, then you put false. If they are sorted, you put true. I think by default, if you put false, you're probably safe in any case. Now what this has done is by pressing enter, I've now retrieved that value. We can verify it by just looking at the data set and finding Aruba. And we'll find the value here, 6.71249. It's the same one as there. And then what we can do is, now that we've got that, we can just drag, do this any way you want. There's lots of ways. And we get all the values. So we actually now have done this lookup. We've successfully brought the data over, all in one shot like that. However, you can see that there are missing values. So when you see a value like this, what it means is that it wasn't able to retrieve any data. So here for Antigua and Barbuda, we've got a GNI, but we don't have the education data because there isn't a value in the other data table. So there's no, it's missing. So the next step is we might want to write a little SQL query so that we can reduce this data set to the actual values we have. So keeping only the records where we have a value for both GNI and education. So I'll write it like this. We're selecting all these data, all three of these columns here, A through C, and then we'll do the standard. We want to bring all these columns, but we want to apply a condition to them using this where. And the where says, what it's going to say is that if the value in column B is greater than 0 and the value in column C is greater than 0, then then we want to retrieve the data. We want the data to be retrieved, and that's what it's done. So we're running this little query. We've pulled out all these data. It's only the complete records, and now we can create a graph. So to create a graph, I'll show you really quickly. Create a plot. So I've selected these data now. I'm going to insert them. Insert it as a scatter chart, as you can see, and perhaps the last thing we might want to do is add labels. So I'm going to click here, add labels, and select this range. And then if we look back at the graph, we should see this scatter chart here, where we have the values graphed out. And that didn't take very long. If you just have this either memorize this code or copy and paste it somewhere so you can quickly retrieve it, it's a pretty quick way to just scrape data off the internet and generate a nice little graph like this. We're using the vlookup function to merge the data, and then we're using this query, this SQL query, to actually clean out some of the data that are missing so we can generate a nice chart like this. All right, that's all I wanted to show you for today. Thanks. Bye.